everybody and welcome to this November Plan With Me video. Before we jump to the November theme, however, let's quickly flip through the previous October pages so you see how this Harry Potter inspired theme finally turned out. This theme worked for me pretty well, but there were still some things that I wanted to change this month, so I hope you'll get some new ideas from this video as well. But now it's time to start with our new theme, and this month I decided to draw some inspiration from Japanese, Chinese and Asian style art in general and bring together something that was still pretty fall appropriate. I thought this was the perfect month for it since I actually did a Japan inspired theme exactly 1 year ago in November, but this one will definitely be very different in terms of colors and also the style of decorations. But anyway, we'll start from the cover page as usual, and I think it has pretty much become a rule rather than exception here on my channel to start from a slightly bigger, more challenging cover page painting. I had something very specific in mind for this one, and I did it using my new gouache paints that I was super excited about. But anyway, before we get to the painting part, I wanted to sketch out everything with a pencil so we have a good guidelines to work with later. I used my Canson watercolor paper today and started to sketch this temple scenery. I was first gonna do a bigger version of this and use the whole page, but I'm honestly so happy I didn't since working with gouache took a little bit more time than I had anticipated. There are also lots and lots of small details in this painting which also took some time. But anyway, I wanted this temple and the fence to be the main focus, and then I just slightly sketched out something to the background, which actually changed quite a bit while I was working with the painting. My goal was to use brighter colors in this since I often lean more towards darker and earthy tones, and also to not use a black pen for the outlines and rely more on the colors themselves. I love experimenting with different art styles, and I really hope you'll be inspired to do so as well. But now that the sketch is done, let's start walking through the painting itself in more detail. I decided to start everything from the temple, and I used two different sizes of brushes in this video. A smaller brush will come handy with all the details, so having something super thin will definitely help keeping all the lines as clean as possible. I really enjoyed using these new Jelly Gouache Paints, and this whole set was pretty inexpensive too. I'll link it to the description of course, as all the other tools I'm using. I mixed all the colors on this mixing plate that came with the kit and then used a little bit of water to get the paints to work better. So the difference between gouache and watercolors is that with gouache you're also able to layer lighter colors on top of darker ones. I would still advise you to do it other way around as much as possible, just to keep all the colors as bright as they can be. But you see me, for example, adding lighter lines on top of the dark layers in the temple roof, and also later on in the painting for the trees and clouds. I definitely wanted this painting to have a little bit more of this graphic style where all the colors were really pigmented compared to what you would achieve with watercolors, for example. All these thin lines will definitely require a steady hand, so always try to work with the most comfortable position for the wrist, where you feel like you have the most control with the strokes. I usually need to be in all kinds of interesting positions while filming these videos just to keep the paper in one place for the camera, but feel free to rotate the painting and do whatever you need while working at home. I chose some different shades of these greenish teal colors for the background and even added some dark navy in the darkest points just for contrast, and then I wanted to pair everything with some red leaves. I think here it was definitely easier to paint the background first and then add all the details on top. For the trees, I just use some random dotting motion, so don't worry about all the shapes too much. And then I layered some different tones of red just to keep everything looking a little bit more interesting. I left the front part of the painting last, where I wanted to have this pond or some kind of water thing. I kept it quite abstract though, kinda to add some interesting aspects to this painting since the whole look was a little bit more abstract and realistic. I chose some similar tones than in the background and then just let my imagination guide me. I left some room for these koi fish and then added some random abstract shapes. Then lastly, I wanted to add some of these white cloud things since I saw them in many Asian style paintings. I used quite a generous amount of white paint to hide everything from the background, and then I also added some random dots and final details to this painting in general. I really like this almost dreamy look the clouds gave to this painting, and I think it ended up suiting this style surprisingly well. So yeah, that's pretty much it for this painting. I know it's a little bit different from me, but I especially like the atmosphere and all these colors together. I'll edit this on a computer a little bit more before adding it to my online shop, so you should be able to find this and also a digital version of this whole theme there as well. If not today, then at least in a couple of days. The link is in the description for all of you who are interested. But after I successfully attached this painting to my notebook, I moved on to the other page to add the monthly title. I kinda wanted there to be something on this page as well, just so it wouldn't look quite as empty next to the crazy painting. So I drew these geometric style window things to frame the monthly title. I feel like I'm always gravitating towards all of these geometric window designs in Eastern Asian style, and there will be some later on in this video as well. But after this was finally done, we can flip our way forward and start setting up the monthly calendar spread. I always use this to write down some important dates and plan the overall timeline of the month. I'll be pretty busy in November, so I decided to go with a slightly bigger calendar here on the top of this page. And I actually went ahead and finished the calendar first, so we'll see how much room will be left for the decorations. I found that fitting 5 days in one page and then the remaining 2 in the next one works pretty well and still leaves a good amount of space to decide. But after this super simple calendar was ready, I actually jumped now to the decorations. So I wanted to paint this koi fish with some ginkgo leaves, I hope that's how you say that, and lots of gold details. I was super inspired by these designs I found from Pinterest, and I realized this was actually a person who sold hand-painted scarves like this on Etsy. Like, how cool is that? These are unbelievably beautiful. Anyway, I started with a pencil sketch and decided to draw and paint this directly onto my notebook for once. So I focused mostly on the fish because I wanted it to have this pretty flowy appearance. I used a lot of time especially to get the fins and the tail right so that I would have good guidelines while painting later. Then I sketched some swirls and leaves around it to serve as a guide for all the colors later as well. I decided to use my watercolors this time because I wanted the end look to be a little bit lighter, and I started first by painting the background and went with these light blue, almost turquoise colors. The notebook paper doesn't allow much blending, so I always try to use pretty light colors first, since there's not much you can do if you happen to lay down too dark layers by accident. Adding water like this to your notebook will always make the paper wrinkle as well. I've yet to find a bullet journal that wouldn't do that, but I guess it's just a part of having illustrations like these in your journal. But I guess in the end, it makes the journal look like it has been well loved throughout the year. I applied some color to the leaves next and wanted these to be fairly dark to bring that teal color to this page as well. If some of your painting edges end up a bit crooked, it doesn't really matter since we're gonna clean up a lot with the gold paint later. Then I finally moved on to the fish and I wanted to switch to these reddish coral tones to add contrast with the water. Again, the gold details we'll cover a lot later, so I just wanted there to be some color variation and not care too much if it looked a little bit messy. I could have honestly went with even darker tones on some areas. I think it would have made the fish stand out even more. Then finally, it's time to move on to the gold paint. I chose the same super thin brush for this purpose. This brush is nothing special, by the way. My brushes never are. I think this was around $3 in my local art supply store. Anyway, I think these foiled paints are so pretty and they create such a beautiful effect. And I especially love this kind of champagne-y gold shade. So I basically just traced all the outlines and the pencil guidelines I did with this paint. And now when you move the page around, you can see this intense shimmery shift it creates. I added some to the leaves as well, and then even some to the swirls in the background. I just think this made the whole page come to life so beautifully. But after the whole painting on this side was done, I wanted to add a few more leaves under the calendar as well, just to add some balance to this spread before writing the November title on top. Then after that, I added these two boxes towards the bottom that you could use for any purpose you need, like your monthly goals, maybe important dates or something like that. I personally need these for my Instagram and Etsy stuff. But after that, this monthly spread was done and it's time to move on to the next one, which will be pretty interesting as well with some Dutch door decorations. Before we jump to it, however, I just want to take a quick moment to thank this month's sponsor, who is Skillshare. I'm always so happy to partner up with them, and for those of you who still don't know them or maybe need a reminder, Skillshare offers thousands of inspiring online classes for creative people on topics like illustrations, fine arts, graphic design, and much more. I'm sure many of you would be interested in this class I recently took called Illustrated Lettering, Drawing Intricate Flower Forms, which is taught by illustrator Gemma O'Brien. I've been trying to improve my flower illustrations recently, and this was such a good class with so many detailed advice, not to mention that an illustration like this would be a perfect bullet journal decoration piece. The classes in Skillshare are meant for learning, so they are completely ad-free, and with an annual subscription, it's less than $10 per month. However, Skillshare is now offering the first 1,000 of my subscribers who use the link in the description a free trial of premium membership. All the information is in the description as well, and once again, thank you so much for Skillshare for continuing to support my channel. It really means so much. And now let's finally move on with our November planning. So I wanted to start this monthly planning spread by first cutting out these Dutch door shapes. I added the decorations only on one side of these in the end, so we still can use the other side for the planning stuff. But before starting with the decorations, I actually decided to write down all the planning related stuff first. So I started from this cursive title, and I also decided to not add any accent colors just yet because I wasn't completely sure how all the colors on this spread would look like in the end. But anyway, after the title, I left myself some space to just write down my overall expectations for November. Then towards the bottom, I decided to do this little bit bigger project timeline type of thing. I'll have some videos and other stuff I have to prepare in advance for the new year, because if everything goes well and the virus situation here in Japan and in Finland doesn't get worse, I'm gonna go back to Finland for the holidays. Some of you know I live in Japan, and as you know, it's been pretty impossible to travel this past year. So I really hope everything goes well and it's possible and safe again for me to go back and visit my family and friends. I know many of you must be in similar situations, so I really hope you're coping with it somehow. Trust me, I really know what you're going through. But to get back to this spread, I stretched this timeline to also fit the end of October and the beginning of December, so it will be the most helpful for me. You could also do this only for November and there will be enough space for it. I'll write which of these numbers stands for which project to the bottom when I have time to fill this, but I thought overall this would be a helpful idea to really see the time we realistically have left this year. Then let's quickly fill the next page as well before jumping to the decorations. So I used the top of this spread for a self-care habit tracker. I've been pretty lazy to track my habits lately, to be honest, so I wanted to change things up a bit and track some different things to make it more interesting again. So these are just some things I like to do as often as possible to take care of myself. And then I thought the bottom half of this page would be perfect for my 15th check-in box, which is usually my chance to kick myself in the ass in the middle of the month if I've been too lazy and need to get back on track with my monthly goals. But now it was finally time to start doing something to these Dutch door things here. So I first sketched these geometric window design things again. I think it's really helpful to sketch them out with a pencil beforehand so you can see all the shapes and then make small changes until everything looks balanced for you. But then I whipped out those same gouache paints again and started to add some similar colors we used in the cover page painting. I combined some mustard yellows, burnt oranges, and then added this dark navy color to the background. It took more time than I'm willing to admit to color the background of these because I tried to be super careful to keep all the lines as straight as possible. I think more than anything, this theme definitely made me realize how much I suck at drawing straight lines, and that's why I rely so heavily always on my ruler. Then when these were finally done, I wanted to draw some quick flowers on this spread, you know, just to add some color to this page. Again, I saw these specific types of flower decorations in many Asian style art, so I kind of tried to replicate that style here. I kept the pencil sketches pretty loose this time and just added some simple flower shapes without trying to keep things too neat and pretty. I chose similar colors than in the painting again, and also some that would go together with the window designs on this page. Then lastly, I wanted to add some of those gold details on this page as well. So I outlined the flowers with the gold paint and also added some random dots and lines with it. I think the gold especially suited these light flowers. I think they look so pretty when you turn the page around. Probably because of all the layers of paint, the Dutch door things didn't stay open that well, but I think it still added an interesting element to this page nevertheless. But yeah, we still have a few pages to go, so let's flip our way to the next one and start setting up the weekly layouts. I was clearly feeling the Dutch door vibe this month, so I decided to take the same idea here to the weekly setup. So I started again by cutting these next few pages in half so we know what kind of space we're working with here. Then I started to sketch this bigger flower here at the top where we can enjoy this decoration piece throughout all the weeklies. I really like the style on the previous page, so I wanted to create something similar here. I think the style reminded me of some kind of vintage retro vibe almost. I don't know if all my drawings this month were that cohesive, but I usually like to mix different things up and not draw the same thing over and over again. Absolutely nothing against that, but it's just not my thing. For me personally, coming up with these themes is my favorite part of creating new monthly themes, and I always think that by mixing many different things up, also you can get more ideas from these videos that you can then pick and choose. But anyway, the same thing here. I'm using the gouache paints and similar colors that I used this far. I knew I wanted to add gold on this page again, but after starting to add it to the flower, I decided it needed something lighter to outline all the petals better. So I ended up adding the gold more on the edges, and then I added some final lines in the end with it after I had colored the background and the calendar as well. Then lastly, to bring more of that Asian feel on this page again, I decided to add this Japanese 4-character proverb here. I think you read this fuko maybe, and it's a little bit difficult to explain the meaning in English, but I think it basically describes the beauty of nature. I thought that was really fitting for this fall time, and I'm sorry for all my Japanese viewers for butchering these kanji characters here. I would also love to hear how you would describe this idiom even better. But yeah, after that I started to set up the bottom of this Dutch door layout. I actually wanted to have a place for some overall weekly planning because I really liked that in my last monthly layout. So I divided this first page here on these 4 sections where I have few rows to write about overall plan for that week, and then some rows to write some non-negotiable tasks that need to get done. Then I moved on to the next page where I set up my daily meal planner. This has been one of my favorite things in my journal for the past few months. It's so helpful to have a place to always plan the meals a few days ahead. Then finally I made room for the daily boxes here in the bottom, and I always use these to write down my daily tasks and any appointments or deadlines. I somehow really like the look of this spread, and I'm super excited to use this layout to track my weeks in November. But now we still have the last page to set up, that will be the monthly review spread. I started this one with these red corner designs, but otherwise kept the whole page pretty simple. I wanted this page to have a big title, and then I just wrote some questions for myself to answer in the end of the month, something that will help me to gather my thoughts and focus on the next month. I brought back this scale measure thing where I can give all these different areas of my life a score from 1 to 10. It's always super interesting to go back and compare the scores between different months and see how things have changed throughout the year. And then it was time for one last small illustration. I felt like the koi fish design on the monthly calendar spread somehow didn't really match with the others that well, so I decided that koi fish needed a friend, and this hopefully tied everything together a little bit better. But yeah, that finally finished up this Asian art inspired monthly theme. This was definitely one of the most colorful monthly layouts I've done in a while, and I really hope you guys liked it and found some new ideas. If you're new here and want to stay tuned for more art and journaling in the future, please consider subscribing to this channel. But yeah, I guess that's it. Thank you guys so much for watching. As always, I really hope you're having an amazing day or night wherever you are, and see you in my next one. Bye bye!